Welcome back to Citizen Extra, this being the second hour. Many thanks indeed for staying with us. Talk to us. What are your thoughts on some of the topics we're discussing in studio, even now as we switch gears and talk about matters IEBC. 22423 is our SMS line. And of course, you can talk to us on social media at Citizen TV Kenya. Now, this week, all eyes are on the IEBC. We're expected to issue guidelines on how the fresh presidential poll will be carried out. A push and pull is expected. It's already started between Jubilee and NASA as to whether the same body that, according to the Supreme Court, to some extent bungled the presidential election, can they be trusted to conduct another election? That's the big question this morning. Some of you have already started SMSing us. I'll read some of your comments, but keep sending us your feedback on 22422 to help us talk about some of this. Let me introduce my panel in studio. We retain Joy Mdivo, an advocate. Many thanks for staying with us. Should I say that on a lighter note? But we're now joined by Gabriel Muduma, a political analyst. Welcome to the broadcast.
Thank you.
And next to him is his member of parliament, Anthony Oluoch, member of parliament, Mathare. So I guess, Gabriel, you need to behave.
I am actually
for all intents and purposes today.
My hands are put together.
Your hands are tied. Anthony, Honorable Oluoch, welcome to the broadcast.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Before we listen to their take on matters IEBC, I believe each of them has an opinion on how the next election should be conducted. But before we listen to them, the President and NASA leader Raila Odinga both spoke about the IEBC for the last couple of days. Let's first begin by listening to President Uhuru Kenyatta and his take on the IEBC, the body that is mandated to conduct elections in this country.
Let IEBC do their job. Let them declare the date. And Raila, let us meet at the ballot. Sini namna hiyo? We are not bothered with courts anymore. Court wamemaliza kazi yao. Wamesema turudie. Si namna hiyo? Na wamesema IEBC within 60 days. Bas. Tuwagojea debe. Na tuwataka siku itangazwe haraka. Haraka. Yeah. Kama hawa watu wanataka UN, waende wafanye UN wawe agency wao. Wafanye yote, sisi hatujali. Wakitaka kuita nani, maserikali ya wazungu hao, wakitaka kuita hiyo, wakuje wa supervise. Wakuje wakue, wanaitwa nini? Monitors, wanaitwa observers. Lakini kura ifanywe na tume ambaye iko katika katiba la Kenya, na hiyo ni IEBC. Waita hawa wazungu wote wakuje watembee huko, watembee na hawa, we don't care.
Well, before I get the take of my panelists in studio about whether the IEBC should conduct the upcoming elections, that was the take of His Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta on IEBC matters. He believed they should be the ones to conduct the election. And he's asked them to quickly move forward, announce the date, give guidelines on how this will happen, bearing in mind this is a situation Kenya has never been in before. Lots of questions that the public will have to know and issues that will need to be sorted about how the whole process will be conducted. But let's now listen to how NASA leader Raila Odinga gave his take on the IEBC and what he believes should happen to that body in the run-up to the election.
Jana wanapewa kifua tena. Uchaguzi unafanywa ndani ya siku 40 na hiyo IEBC hiyo. Mwambie hiyo ni ndoto.
Gabriel, you've been listening, you've been smiling, throughout those two up sounds of vox pops by President Uhuru.
Gabriel smiles all the time.
Oh, he smiles all the time.
I do, actually.
Okay, I know you want to react to those, but I also want to hear from you. What's next for the IEBC in line with what we are seeing?
You see, I think IEBC were given a directive by the same Supreme Court that ordered the nullification of the presidential election. And today, actually, that's why I'm honored to be sitting next to one of my great friends, and Wakili, who was actually in that particular scenario. And if that is the directive that they were given to do, the election, again, we still do not know that which was, or that which will be inscribed after the 21 days. That is why everybody is waiting to read that particular detail. And at this
point, we also can't wait too long, because 60 days will also be ticking.
But you see, this is where the problem is. We have nothing to go by, whether we like it or not. We'll do a lot of speculation, and which is allowed.
Which is what we're doing now.
Exactly. But until we are able to see that which was written, right, whether names were mentioned, whether a particular department need to be held accountable. We have really nothing to go by but to wait. And you are so right, Wahiga, by saying all we are doing is speculating. Having said that, when you look at the president, then you can tell he's visibly, you know, agitated and actually angry to an extent. And it's allowed. Nobody goes to court. Like my good Wakili will tell you, nobody goes to court with an aim of losing. You go and fight your battle to show, you know, the court and the world that you're indeed right, or you're indeed, you know, stepping in the right direction. And really the judgment that came is that IEBC should conduct this election. And it's the only constitution allowed body to perform this exercise. So could there be issues in IEBC? Probably there is. So what needs to be done? I'm not one who advocates, you know, the bringing down of institutions. Let us fix, and we need to learn this thing. Let us fix that which is wrong in an institution, rather than, you know, saying we are bringing down the whole institution and bringing it anew.
Let's get specific. What does fixing look like?
It could be a certain department. It could be individuals. And actually, let me tell you,
for you, that would be adequate.
Of course, because look at it this way, and let's be, you know, the element of fact and the element of truth is never dissected to fit in one's personal opinion. And this is why I like you have the judges, the vetting board. And you remember in 2016, so many judges were vetted. Some were actually accused. In 2012, you know, we remember Justice Maraga was also in a panel where he was being grilled. So we do not live in a vacuum. We are not saying we are expecting, you know, what you'd call an error-free, you know, exercise. And we will never have that. You know, we will never have a perfect system. You know, we will have mistakes here and there. And that's what I'm calling upon. Let us fix that which is wrong. And if we have that mentality, we will be able to see where have we gone wrong, how do we fix it. It's more like an exam. It's more like an exam where you see
constituency boss, who I need to bring in now into this discussion, Honorable Onwuch. He was in court throughout the whole process. And I want to find out first from you, your thinking on, and of course we don't have the full judgment, the comprehensive one that will give us more insight into how the judges came to their conclusion. But you know that on one hand, they pointed a finger at the IEBC, especially when it comes to transmission of results. Then they go a few minutes later and direct the same IEBC to carry out the next poll. Couldn't they have given a different directive? Were they not aware of the Pandora's box they were opening by stating that so-and-so has an issue, but so-and-so still needs to go ahead and oversee the election?
Yeah, I think this is a legal catch-22, because on the one hand, the courts cannot direct anybody else. There were two respondents as per the Constitution. There were two respondents, let me say three respondents. The third respondent was a player together with the petitioner. So the only other person whom the Constitution contemplates can carry out this election is the IEBC. Now, we must wait for the judgment. The devil lies in the detail. But I suspect that post the rematch, what you're now calling the grand rematch, some heads will roll. But first things we have to do, IEBC...
Post, not pre the rematch, because some are calling for heads to roll now.
There are two things that must happen. I'm addressing myself now first to the Commission. You realize that the Commission, the final person who pens his signature to the appointment is the President. He's now exercising what they call temporary powers of incumbency. He cannot hire, he cannot fire. The process of removal of a judge starts with a report or a recommendation to the Judicial Service Commission. They recommend to the President, who appoints a tribunal. That's the process of firing. He cannot do that, his hands are tied. If that succeeds and the time does not allow, there's a process of reappointment and he must appoint. We cannot do that in 60 days. So my take is, and I know my coalition's position and the disquiet they have about Chebukati and his commission, unfortunately within the confines of the law.
And can you clarify, because some sections of the media are saying as of now they are okay with Chebukati, that's NASA. Chiloba is the issue. Are we able, is it all IEBC that needs to go?
They're not okay with Chebukati. The realization that the coalition has is that constitutionally there are constraints towards the removal. If we do that, we may very well be playing in the hands of the incumbent, who will sit in some gray area called sitting president with some temporary. He can live with those temporary powers. It's like being on appointment without confirmation for 3 years.
Acting.
And so long as you're not fired, you're earning a salary. So who wants to do that with a sitting president whom some portion of this country say they didn't elect? So the initial business,
hold on.
the initial business that they must do, and which is what Chaloba now and his commission have, is that we must deal with the secretariat. But I want to take us back to the
once that is dealt
issue.
with, then for NASA at least
We will deal. I know the president and the coalition of Jubilee has said they will return to the judgment. I want to say that NASA will return to this commission thing after the election.
Okay.
So for now we'll let it rest. But one, some chips must fall. The Supreme Court has spoken. It has said, you remember when you look at Article 2 of the Constitution, it says the Constitution is supreme. We have a constitutional supremacy as opposed to a parliamentary democracy. It is the Constitution that declares itself that any law that is inconsistent with me is void, isn't it? And any act or omission is an illegality. The Supreme Court has said these guys committed illegalities. They committed certain offenses,
and they must.
And
investigations must be carried out.
I know they haven't said that, but the manner in which the ruling we have is framed, there are serious questions as to criminal responsibility. And I know the Election Offences Act will come to play, but for the time being, I think the Commission has the powers to suspend, pending the outcome of the full judgment when they will know which particular directorates are responsible. But I can tell you, I know the directorate of the ICT, Muhati,
you have
must
proof?
step aside.
You have proof on
Yes,
these matters?
because we asked the court to carry out a scrutiny. The court graciously allowed a scrutiny. They did not comply, but even with the little that we were allowed to log in, it says volumes. Among other things, the evidence that we put,
yes,
it actually nailed the IBC.
Let me put you on hold there. I need to come back to that topic. Let me bring Joy into this particular discussion.
Yes.
Kenyans asking the way forward, Joy, because I can see that the next couple of days are going to be very eventful in terms of how that election will happen. Your take, of course, on matters IBC.
The statements by Honorable Raila, I'll give the same shade that I gave to the statements by Honorable Uhuru. They are actually made in the heat of a political moment.
Okay.
And sometimes when you do that, because we're talking about the very same set of facts, you cannot praise the court and the independence of the court in one hand and then attack the IEBC and the independence of the IEBC on the other.
Even though the court has asked questions about that same IEBC.
Like you said, we do not have the full judgment, and so therefore, even when we are asking these questions, we don't have the full facts. When the judgment comes out, then we will know the areas of lacuna. We have to come, as a country, we have to get to a place where we stop making some of these officers become career killers. Because what will happen is we'll get to a place where nobody wants to take up those jobs, even those who are credible. Because whenever you go there, it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. We've seen the poison chalice that has become the chair of the EACC. The chair of the IEBC is becoming the same. Chebukati
an evolving door type structure.
And not only that, somebody comes in. I mean, Chebukati is a man who has practiced for many years. He has stature in the Law Society of Kenya, and amongst many clients whom we have served faithfully through the years. So this one incident becomes the career killer. It's the one thing that taints you for life. We have to get to a place, even as a nation, where we find a way of expressing our disquiet without shooting the very people who we are expecting to carry out these elections.
It's funny you brought up the IBC chairperson. Do you think his quest to, I guess, redeem himself, quote unquote, after the Supreme Court judgment is the reason why he said it is my body, the IBC, that must run this election? But he also, in a sense, sought to say then that as commissioners we only came 7 months ago, etc. So do you feel for him it's one last push to show that, you know, he's overseeing the process properly?
It is, and if you remember, if you go back in Citizen Extra in the early days, when we're talking about getting rid of the Isaac Hassan Commission, that's one of the criticisms that I personally leveled against the entire process. I was like, look, we're going to have a brand new commission working with the same old secretariat. If there are things that we had a problem with, it's not the commissioners who are the problem, it's let's look at the systemic. But that time the agitation was get out the commissioners, and went ahead and did. Now we have a rookie commission who at the very first try are being vilified as if they sat there and planned this thing from here to next year. And those are the things now I'm saying. When we attack people instead of looking at the commission, then we get to a place where even when we need credible, patriotic Kenyans to fill those places, they'll not want to fill them because of what it comes with. But now moving to the conversation that we have been having, the IEBC is the only organization that can carry out the election. We have put it in our law, it is cast in stone, not much is there. But what Mheshimiwa said is actually correct, because in section 59 of the Elections Act, the officers of the commission, and this goes down all the way to the ones who are at the polling station level, are actually personally liable for acts of omission or commission that are deemed to be illegality.
And there were consequences that were well laid out in the Election Offences Act.
So the invitation by the IEBC chair for the DPP and for other investigative bodies to come in and look into this malpractice, I suspect some of those people who are feeling fake from 34Bs and fake from 34As are going to find their heads rolling, and I'm expecting to see some people arraigned in court, because we cannot just be saying it's the commission, it's the commission. We need to start looking at the people. You know why I'm talking like this is because I've worked in judiciary before, and you can be sitting there as a judicial officer thinking you're doing a lot of justice, but your prosecutor, your clerk, the guy in the registry, people have pulled strings there, and until you realize you're sitting there as a marionette. So I can understand the frustration by the chair of the IEBC.
Allow me to stop you there, and it's important you've raised matters of the court, because we need to cross over to the Milimani Law Courts now. One of the expected consequences of the Supreme Court judgment was that other quote-unquote election losers would now feel that they have enough ground to go to court to plead their case, that they lost unfairly, maybe the process was not overseen properly, etc. Let's now get an update with what is happening at the courts right now, this being the first working day after the judgment was given. Jackie Maribe, good morning. Who has moved to court, from which counties and constituencies, and of course what can we expect in regards to this particular process?
Right, indeed, and good morning to you as well. What we know so far is that as per the law, the judiciary had said within 28 days of the declaration, any person who would have wished to contest the results would be allowed to come to court and file their petitions here. We are currently at the Milimani Law Courts, but Wahiga, what we do understand so far is that the courts had said if there is any other county that has this particular jurisdiction, if there's a high court in any particular county, then those aggrieved can move to the high courts in their particular or respective county. So far, what we do know is that by 11 a.m. We will be expecting Hassan Nur Hassan, who lost the Mandera County gubernatorial race to incumbent Ali Roba. He will be filing his petition represented by his lawyer, Professor Tom Ojenda. We do also understand that Wavinya Ndeti could also be filing, but we are yet to get a clarification of whether she will be doing it here or in Machakos County. But really, Wahiga, what we do need the public to understand is that not everybody, will be coming to file their cases here in Nairobi, because that work was devolved as well by the judiciary. But all these other cases, as you are saying, have been precipitated by the fact that this particular verdict went the way it did on Friday, and pundits have been arguing that it's opened up an avenue for an avalanche of election petitions to be filed by election losers, from gubernatorial seats all the way down to members of county assembly. And we also do need the public to understand, Wahiga, that these particular cases only for the MCA can be heard by magistrates. All the other seats, from gubernatorial election losers to senatorial, members of county, or rather National Assembly and senators, those will be heard here at the High Court, whether in Nairobi or in any other respective county that has a High Court. Wahiga, from the date of filing this election petition, those who will be filing today, those who will be filing in later days, will be having their cases determined within 6 months of the date that they will be filing. And as much as the judiciary has been saying they will be working as fast as they can to expedite any election petition, that is what the law says. But Wahiga, anyone who comes here, so far no one has come this morning. We will be giving you an update as and at when they arrive at the Milimani Law Courts here in Nairobi. Wahiga.
Thank you so much, Jackie Maribe, for that update from the Milimani Law Courts. Hopefully we'll cross back to you at 11 o'clock or so, when petitioner Hassan Nur Hassan makes his way there, as you had mentioned, just to file a petition. He is challenging the declaration by IEBC that Ali Ibrahim Roba of the Jubilee Party, who was declared the winner then, that he won in a fair manner, and so he's challenging that at the minimum law courts. We expect other petitions to be going on as well across the country. When we get those updates, we will give them to you. But this opens an interesting discussion that I also want to bring to my panel as well. Gabriel, coming back to you. So the IEBC might not just be conducting one election. They could potentially be conducting several elections over the next year or so. Capacity, human resource challenges, is it stormy days ahead for the IEBC?
Indeed, I think it is.
Whichever way things go.
Yeah. And actually, this was expected. And given the fact that I've had people argue that actually the way this court verdict went, many people now feel actually we can file it and actually win it. The beauty about this judgment, it also gives credence to the very fact that the issue of just go to court is no longer words. You can actually go file a good petition, a successful petition, and win. So many people will actually go using that very weight from the Supreme Court. Whether it works, in the lower court, we have to wait. In fact, that's a question why I wanted to ask my wakili now. Is my wakili my mheshimiwa. So I don't know which one, but I'll be calling. They're calling them both. There's something that he talked about the incumbency, and this is the question I wanted to ask. Wakili and probably Joy, and this has to do with the incumbency and the powers that the president has at this time. And many people have had so many people interpret it differently, and I have it here. It's actually under 134. Exercise of the presidential powers during temporary incumbency, and 1A actually talks during a period commencing on the date of the first vote in a presidential election, and ending when a newly elected president assumes office. So the question that I'm asking is, the first vote was invalidated, my good friend lawyers.
Yes.
Then what happens? Does the president still become sit in the incumbency that we're talking about, or is he still with his the same powers that he has held since he was sworn in? And that's what I was asking. We need to understand, because people are actually interpreting this actually part of the Constitution very differently.
Yes, Honorable Loach, have you managed to catch his question?
Yes, I have. My understanding of the Constitution is that the president has a fixed term, and that term runs from the time he was sworn in, and it ends when we carry out the next election. Whatever happens after that, he sits in some window period, which the Constitution calls the point where he exercises temporary incumbency. And let me take you back. Prior to an election taking place, IEBC usually publishes what you call now, we have kicked off the period of the presidential elections. That period signals the beginning of the end of the term of the president. When the vote was cast, the end of that president's term, save for that period running to the swearing in, has kicked off. So that period, that gray area, we're already in it. And the Constitution contemplates that there may be a runoff, and this is the runoff. There is only 60 days post the date of the election and the judgment. There
had been a contention of whether we're talking about a runoff or a fresh election. Has clarity now been sought? Because I believe the directive was a fresh election.
The interpretation can only be one. Let's go to Article 140 of the Constitution. 140 of the Constitution says a petitioner shall file a petition when they're challenging the validity of a presidential election. It goes on and says judgment must be delivered within X number of days, I believe 14 days.
Which happened.
If they uphold it, the president shall be sworn, and they give you the timelines within the president will be sworn. I think it's about 7 days or something. If they invalidate
Tuesday after 7 days.
If they invalidate that election, then you go to a rerun of the top two. I don't think the Constitution gives two scenarios where the Supreme Court could either call for fresh elections or a rerun of the two. So the nomenclature may have been used in such a way that people think that Abduda Dida, and I have a lot of respect for him, and the Kuru Court, and I have a lot of respect for him, but I think this is about the top two. That's how the people of Kenya contemplated it. This is what they crafted in, and we must read into the decision of the Supreme Court where there is a lack of clarity. We must read in to the constitution that what did the Kenyan people contemplate.
Okay.
I think it's going to be between Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that holds primarily because the petitioner was the one who was the number 2.
Yes.
But my reading of the law is that if the petition, for example, was Abdu Badida and the petition was successful,
Would that then have
he would
changed
also
what
have
we're
a right
talking
to
about?
participate in the election. If the Maina Kiai case as well lends some credence to it, that the one who also files the petition has a right to participate. But I agree with Mheshimiwa in terms of August 8th, that is when President Kenyatta started his incumbency reign, for lack of a better word. Because once the presidential election has been called, then temporal incumbency it kicks in. And even if now there's an order for a repeat election, that temporal incumbency carries on. So August 8th is when temporal incumbency began, and I don't see it abating until we have a new commander-in-chief, or if the same commander-in-chief is being sworn in again. But be that as it may, we have to come to a place where we also appreciate what the Constitution was trying to do. If you're the one who's, let's say now, President Kenyatta was not in the running, even if he was not defending his term, but he was a one-term president and was not in the running. It is important to have that incumbent in place because the country needs to have a commander-in-chief. The country needs to have a president in charge. So it's possible to do away with parliament and the others because you know they're coming back. But at the same time, you have to have somebody in charge in case, for example, you need to go to war. But during this
disaster or something, and guidance needs to be given, leadership.
But during this time, you don't want him to have a situation where he can hire, where he can fire, where he can pass new laws. Because the assumption is if somebody else is coming into that space, they should have the leeway to make decisions affecting the position. Now, this is the problem we are seeing happening in the counties. Governors, before they exited, some of them imagining that they were coming back, laid in place measures to make their landing comfortable, and now they are not coming back. And the person who's coming in is finding himself surrounded by people who he feels it is difficult to work with them. So that sort of lacuna also needs to be that conflict needs to be resolved also at the county level. But also looking at where we are as a society right now, we've come to a place where we have made the connection between our politics and our lives. And I thank God because of what the Supreme Court did. Because it doesn't matter which side of the political divide we are. We need to come to a place where our laws...
Gabriel has nodded in agreement with your statement.
Where our laws mean something. And I agree on some parts of the summarized judgment and some I do not agree with. But one thing that I find is a big win for Kenya is the fact that the court actually said it is not only important to arrive at a certain conclusion, it is important how we get there. And by making the process, the IEBC is not a referee, the IEBC is the water pipe, delivering the water to our tap. So they're not just standing aside and saying, you can go ahead and do it.
So they
have to be a faithful pipe, not with leaks, not with whatnot. And that is why
and that is what the Supreme Court was raising in that.
And that is why Section 59 also places the duty not just on the commissioners but also on the officers and tells them, look, any omissions, any collusions, any whatnot, we are going to come after you personally.
We
want you to follow the law and we want you to follow it faithfully.
I'll have to stop you there because I believe we're crossing over to Uasin Gishu where John Wanyama is on standby. Early on we were talking about matters judiciary, now we want to talk about the IEBC. After that we'll also cross over to Kisumu County to talk to Laura Chieng, also get views of residents there. I believe some members of parliament from the region also have a press briefing in Kisumu. But first, let's start with Eldoret. Uasin Gishu, John Wanyama, over to you. What do residents think about, of course, the upcoming poll? It's happening, whether you like it or not, but rather who will conduct that election? The IEBC, a reconstituted IEBC. What is their take?
Thank you very much, Maura. And here in Eldoret, specifically Uasin Gishu County, residents have mixed reactions on this. But the majority number are saying that the IEBC should be given a chance for the second time to ensure they go and carry ahead this exercise of election after 60 days. And Maura, here the residents are also saying that the court decided and directed that the institution, that being IEBC, should be given the mandatory of going ahead with the exercise of election and not any other institution. Without wasting time, Mwaura, let's talk to residents here just to give us their views on what they think, whether IEBC should continue with this exercise or not. If you can come close here, my first question to you. Unafikiria IEBC ipewa nafasi ya kuendesha uchaguzi ambao unakuja?
Mimi kama mkaaji wa Uasin Gishu County, mimi naunga mkono IEBC waendelee kutufanyia uchaguzi yenye inafuata sasa, kwa sababu waliweza kufanya uchaguzi mzuri sana. Sisi kama Uasin Gishu hatukuwa na shida na IEBC hata kidogo. Sisi tulipika magura zetu na magura zetu zilienda mzuri, na sisi sasa Uasin Gishu tunaunga mkono IEBC iweze kuendesha uchaguzi hiyo inayofuata sasa. Sisi kama wananchi wa Uasin Gishu hatuna maneno na tunaunga mkono kabisa kwa vyote vile, kwa sababu sisi tuko tayari kupiga kura yenye inafuata sasa kwa kupitisha rais wetu wa Jamhuri ya Kenya Uhuru Kenyatta, na sisi hatuna wasiwasi wowote. Sisi tuko tayari kamili na tunaunga mkono, na hata wakati mheshimiwa rais aliweza kupatia gavana wetu ya Uasin Gishu Jackson Manda kwa kuongoza wa kampeni ya Uasin Gishu ya North Rift msema, sisi tuliunga mkono kabisa na tunaunga mkono kamili na tutapiga kura kamili. Asante.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Basi mimi naitwa John Samai kutoka Uasin Gishu, Eldoret County. Sisi kama wakaaji wa Uasin Gishu tumeunga mkono IEBC iendeshe uchaguzi wa Kenya. Sisi tulipokea kwa njia mzuri kwa sababu tulipiga kura kwa njia amani. Tutapiga kura wote sisi kama wakaaji wa hapa, tunasema asante kwa sababu sisi ni wakaaji wa Uasin Gishu. Sisi ni watu wa Jubilee. Wakati Maraga alipotangaza kwamba uchaguzi ifanywe katika mula wa siku 60, sisi kama wakaaji wa Uasin Gishu tulisema ni tunataka amani, tunataka kupiga kura kwa amani, hatuna kelele na mtu. Sisi kama wakaaji wa hapa tunaunga mkono IEBC iongoze uchaguzi ya Uasin Gishu ya Kenya mzima ili kazi iendelee mzuri. Kwa vile sasa imekuwa ni kazi ngumu kwa sababu sisi tulikuwa tumemaliza kazi ya kupiga kura, tumerudiwa tena kwa sababu ni mambo ya independent body ya judges na Supreme Court. Sasa tunasema kwamba sisi kama wakazi tunakubaliana na IEBC iongoze uchaguzi ambayo inaendelea na tufanye uchaguzi kwa amani, tufanye kwa njia ya utulivu ili kila mmoja apate haki yake. Kwa hivyo kama sisi wakazi wa hapa, in fact juzi wakati Uhuru alikuwa huko Nairobi akiongea na magovernors na MCAs, tulipongeza kwa sababu alisema kama sisi watu wa North Rift tumetoa Jackson Mandago governor wa Uasin Gishu iongoze uchaguzi katika North Rift. Tunapongeza, tunasema asante, tuko pamoja na hawa, tuko pamoja na kila kitu. Asante sana.
My final person, what's your views? Maoni yako kuhusiana na IEBC wasimamie uchaguzi ama?
Sisi kama wakazi wa Uasin Gishu na sehemu yote ya Uasin Gishu tumesema tuko na imani na IEBC wanaweza kutuongeza kwa hii uchaguzi. It is known in the new dispensation of the new constitution, the only body mandated to undertake the election is IEBC. Sasa sisi tuko na imani na wa independent bodies. Sisi tumesema under this election tutapiga kura man to man. Sisi Uasin Gishu tuko sawa, tutapiga kura kwa Uhuru Kenyatta.
Thank you.
Thank
you very much. Mwaura, those are their views, and as you've heard clearly, they are really supporting fully that IEBC should continue with the exercise of election after 60 days as it was directed by the court. Maybe, Mwaura, with your guest in studio, if they can just help residents here, so many questions they are asking is, what will happen if Raila Odinga will refuse to go to election because IEBC are conducting the elections? And what will happen if the IEBC will be given new people to go ahead with the election? Does Uhuru Kenyatta maybe have the power and the mandate to swear them in or not? Mwaura.
Well, thank you so much, John Wanyama, for sampling their views, but also getting questions, which I can now pose to my panelists in studio. The good thing is they were hearing you, John, and so I can allow them to respond. I'll start with you, Gabriel. Sorry, go ahead.
You see, I don't know why we are trying to create a wedge. And this I'm actually directing to many people who are actually disseminating information from our TV stations, from our radio stations, that there is a lot of indifference between Kenyans. Kenyans are saying we were directed. We need to go back to the ballot. They understand it very well. Whether it's IEBC, and this time it's actually IEBC, and I don't know why we would try and give different opinions when we know very well that IEBC is the only body under our constitution mandated to do this election. From what you're hearing people say is that it is a directive we have been given. We just want to know the date. So the onus is on IEBC to give a date, and before they do that, many Kenyans would want to know, where did IEBC go wrong? And words have been thrown all over. I mean, I've asked myself questions. How can a trained returning officer or presiding officer not sign a Form 34B? You know, those are questions that many Kenyans are having. Was it, you know, and then comes in the question, was it the fact that they did not know? Is it through ignorance, or was it deliberate? And these are the things that we need to question. And those questions and those answers are only going to be found when we start doing the postmortem of this election and finding who slept on the job. That's why I was so against us saying let's bring IEBC down or send 336 as of 2006. That's the number of employees that IEBC had. We need to find a way, Wahiga, honestly, to be able to fix and strengthen independent institutions. And that's what Kenyans are saying. Tell us the dates and also let us know what needs to be fixed in IEBC.
But there are some Kenyans who, despite asking, tell us the date, are concerned about the referee rematch.
I've just given you my concerns as well.
Okay.
I want to know. And you see, the problem we are doing is when we trivialize the issues of IEBC into a Jubilee or a NASA, where we say Jubilee actually had a direct hand in it, or NASA had insiders in IEBC. No, that is not how we should address this thing. I understand, and every other person understands, the element of doubt. It's always going to be with us, and that's why I'm telling you, I take word and I take it very seriously. What Mutunga said before he left office, he said the issue about presiding on a presidential election is that you will have a serious part of this country blaming you and others actually be happy with you. That is bound to happen. But yet again, to the Kenyans today who are watching this, we also need to speak to them. The fact that we can disagree does not make us enemies. We just have divergent views on a particular topic, and that is why I think at the end of the day there has to be divergence. We must come all together. By the way, these two people, these two individuals, the president and Raila Odinga, must actually spread out their wings to incorporate their people to understanding that this is the only way to go.
Okay, let me bring a question that residents were asking to Honorable Oluoch. Should we get to the election, whichever date will be called, and the IEBC remains as it's currently constituted in terms of workforce, leadership, etc., will NASA participate in that election? Has that been something your coalition has discussed?
Yes and no. Yes, because constitutionally we will box ourselves into a cul-de-sac if we decide not to participate, because an election will take place, whether we like it or not, in 60 days. Those are the dictates of the law. That's what the Supreme Court said. On the other hand, we must ventilate our concerns, like he has said, about the staff. And I want us to separate here. Let us leave the institution called IEBC intact, because we created that institution. So that we take the faults that have taken place and deal with them as those faults and individuals. I used to have a book called, I used to like reading a book called The 1 Minute Manager. And the idea about the 1 Minute Manager is that where there is a fault, let the person Wahiga remain, and you cannot attack Wahiga and remove all the sense of his personality and his ego in tatters. Deal with that fault
within
and deal with it in 1 minute, so that you, at the end of the day, you say, other than that, Wahiga, I think you're a good person, isn't it? But deal with this. So that's how I want us to approach the IEBC issue.
Calls for the UN to come into this, a foreign body?
I think those are political statements. They are frustrations and concerns which are ventilating and finding expression in different ways, and people saying we don't trust you, so we can say bring UN, bring what, but at the end of the day this must be appreciated within the confines of the law. But then let me also say, from some of the things I'm hearing, the IEBC, the reactions, the people filing petitions, you know, there is no crisis as such. This was constitutionally contemplated. That we ventilate our beef, let me call it beef, this beef was expected. That there will be this situation, we will come to it, and one way or the other there are people who will find fault.
Honorable Lord, I have to interrupt you because I need to cross over to Mombasa County now. Jubilee leaders are issuing a statement on some of the events over the weekend led by Honorable Suleiman Shaba. Let's listen in now.
President anapata zaidi ya 100,000 votes kuhakikisha na kuonesha watu wa Mombasa na watu wa Kenya kwa jumla, kwa sisi tuna imani na President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta na Deputy President wake William Ruto, na kwa Jubilee itashinda tena kwa wingi, na tutaendelea kuongoza nchi ya Kenya kwa siasa na kwa filosofia na agenda ya Jubilee Party. So sisi tunasema rasmi, the campaign starts again today, and we are very confident that we are going to win it this time. Mheshimiwa Moboza, kama nataka kuongeza.
Mimi kwanza ni kushukuru wananchi wote wa Mombasa ambao ni wafuasi wa dhati wa Jubilee walivyojitokeza kwa amani tarehe 8 mwezi wa 8, na tukafanya jitihada zote hadi sisi tukajua ya kwamba rais wetu alikuwa ameongoza katika hizi kaunti 6. Vile vile sasa hii tunaita watu wetu wote, wale MCA, wale walikuwa members of parliament, county women rep, wote wajitokeze na tushikane kwa dhati zaidi, kwa sababu kuna mwanasiasa mtaalamu alisema vox lay vox die, the voice of the people is the voice of God, and these people spoke on the 8th, and this time they are going to speak again, and I'm sure we are going to win. Asanteni.
Na sisi pia kama alivyosema Mheshimiwa Moboza, tutataka kuwashukuru Wakenya wote waliotoka kutupigia sisi kura na kumpigia president kura, na tuna imani kuwa mara hii tutaongeza tena zaidi kura za president. Mheshimiwa Amina.
Yangu nitazungumza machache kusema kwamba kwanza nashukuru watu wa Pwani kwa jumla kwa vile ambapo safari hii mpaka viti vimeonekana. Lakini bado nasema NASA wasipige ngoma sana. Ngoma inaanza rasmi na wajitayarishe. Vitu walivyonavyo pia bungeni vile ambavyo walikuwa wamepata huenda pia wasivipate very soon, kwa sababu tuko tayari na kuwa tumejipanga safari hii na tumejua mchezo ambao umechezwa. Wao wakisema kwamba rais wetu sijui amefanya nini, hayo yote sisi tunasema kwamba ule wembe tuliowanyoa nao bado wembe ni ule ule. Kwa hivyo wajitayarishe wakijua kwamba sisi tuko tayari, na safari hii tunasema it is 70+1.
Haya. Mimi kwa majina naitwa Matano Chengo. Mimi ndo mwenyekiti wa chama cha Jubilee, na kama mnavyoona timu ya Jubilee imekusanyika leo hapa. Wale viongozi tulikuwa nao wakati wa uchaguzi uliopita na wale viongozi wa chama tuko hapa pamoja leo kujipanga rasmi kwa kuanzisha kampeni rasmi za Mheshimiwa Uhuru Kenyatta ambaye ndo rais wa Jamhuri ya Kenya. Sisi kama chama cha Jubilee tunasema tuko tayari kupambana na hawa walaghai waizi wa kura. Wameenda kulalamika wameibiwa kura, lakini sehemu zote zile walizotaja kila zilivyoangaliwa zilithibitisha kwamba Raila Amolo Odinga na watu wake ndio walioshinda. So tunataka kujua nani mwizi kati yetu na wao. Tunasema sisi kwamba tuko tayari, tutawashinda. Sijui wataenda koti gani nyingine, lakini wajitayarishe kwenda nyumbani. Labda wataenda koti ya Hero kama iko.
Well, campaigns unofficially began in December last year. Many thought they were over, but it appears that we are back again, of course, after the Supreme Court judgment. Those were Jubilee leaders from Mombasa County, led by a gubernatorial aspirant there, Suleiman Shabal, giving views on a campaign period that we can say, for all intents and purposes, has officially kicked off. At some point, we'll cross over to Kisumu County, where some area leaders also want to issue a statement, probably in regards to the same. Campaigns are now on, and of course, it's about gathering and mobilizing the voters to vote in, along party lines or to entice them to vote for their different candidates. Well, let's wind up the discussion now in studio. My time is almost up, but I'll give each of my panelists a minute to give their closing statements, even as we talk about the IEBC and management of an election that Kenyans had never expected. Truth be told, you can tell by the reaction on Friday that many had not expected that judgment by the Supreme Court. And I want to give Honorable Oluoch a chance to finish and then briefly just
Yes, I was at that point where I was saying that, this beef was constitutionally anticipated, and every view, however outrageous, was
by beef you mean for the benefit of our...
Yes, by beef. I come from Mathare.
Take that word in
Let me say our differences and the disquiet that you're hearing from people was constitutionally anticipated. So let us not think this is out of the box. There was going to be a judgment. In 2013 there was one. We were told accept and move on, and we said we disagree, but we accept and we moved on. 2 days before the election, Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta came and said, I will accept. And I want you, Raila, to say, you will accept and move on. But then, it was also anticipated that you can say, I will accept, and then backtrack like you did. That was expected, so nobody's going to fault you for that. In my own constituency in Mathare, and I come from a cosmopolitan constituency, I have Kikuyus who voted for me, I have Luyas, Kalenjins, Borana, and other people. And I told them, I will be MP for all people. So I look at some of the forums, and I also, even though I take a position from my coalition, I see the frustrations from some of the people and communities who voted for me. That is expected, and I must accommodate all that. So as I wind up, I just want to wind up by using the words of Maraga when he began his judgment. And he says, the greatest of a nation lies in its fidelity to the Constitution. Let us remember, it is about the Constitution that says, I am supreme. So that everything else that we are faulting about the Form 34 zilikuwa, it has been trivialized. Atitakuaje tumeshinda, and then atika Form 34 kwa sababu haziku add up. Fidelity to the Constitution marks the greatness of a nation, respect for the rule of law, and above all, respect for God. Isn't it? The fear of God.
Yes,
and so in answer to a lot of things which I have agreed with her. But I want to say one thing.
Briefly,
if you know,
eaten into a minute.
If you know that you cannot respect the Constitution, you do not have the fear of God, please don't take this job as a commission.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So that, because we are saying these jobs will become a musical chair, go in, go out. But if you know you won't fear the Constitution and respect God, please look for another job.
Look for another job. Okay. Yes. I think your point has come across quite clearly. Joy?
One thing that I want also Kenyans to have a discussion post this second election. Do we really want to have all 6 elections on one day? We need to have electoral reform to separate the presidential election from the rest of the races. Why? Because we have placed such a premium on the presidential race. Like even how we are going to vote in the next 60 days, you will see the difference.
We are eagerly waiting to see some of the differences.
There'll be no distraction. There'll be no... we need to have a situation where we look at our... Even logistically, the IEBC was inundated because they had all these other races that they were doing, all these other timelines that they were dealing with. Time has come for us to also have an honest conversation. Do we set ourselves up for failure? The timelines, even for filing a petition and doing what? When you have all these other things you're still tying up, people need to just say, look, we really have high aspirations for our IEBC, but maybe they're not able to handle what they need to handle within the timelines set by the Constitution. So my parting
constitutional amendment, you're thinking?
We need constitutional amendment and also electoral law reform so that we separate the races, and also we need to have a discussion about even the size of the electoral posts. The Constitution says 290. Time has come for us to review. Do we really need 290? Because I think our elections are too big, and that's why when the burden becomes too much now, it overwhelms all of us.
Our elections are too big to be manageable. Possibly,
and too expensive. Because that's 45 billion down the drain, and another 10 billion needed in the next 60 days. Who's paying
Money
for that?
which we already did
Is the
not
Kenyan
have.
taxpayer.
I totally agree with Wakili and what also Wakili Joy has actually said. And I think it's the high time we start looking at this thing and making serious decisions as to how our elections will be conducted in the near future. Having said that, my word to IEBC is this: it's to me and as a voter, it's just a small tilt. And you have to wait and see what the judges will come up with, and if the areas that they are pointing to, make that sense, and you don't have any way out, please go fix them and let Kenyans understand. It is our democracy being strengthened, and we have to give it time. So I think from where we are standing, as much as we would want to say, majority of Jubilee supporters and enthusiasts feel as if they've been disenfranchised from their win, they just have to wait and look at that judgment. Who knows? They may actually look at it in the final end, including His Excellency the President. We look at it and understand, right, this is why they came to this, understanding. Probably they are right. And so it is the high time we just give it time. Let it come after, now we are looking at 20 days probably. And when it comes out, let us read it and, let us make the right amends. It does not hurt. But from where I'm seated, it is our democracy being strengthened. Let's give it time.
It is our democracy being strengthened. That's how we wrap up this part of the broadcast, Matters IEBC, a topic I'm sure we'll be discussing several times over the next couple of days. Honorable Oluoch, many thanks indeed for finding time to be here with us. Gabriel Joy, really thankful that you were able to be here with us. Time now for another short break. On the other side of this break, we'll be talking about doing business in a political year, because I believe that's the only way to describe 2017, a political year. Are you an owner of an SME? In this political year, what has been your experience? Talk to us on 22422. Talk to us on social media as well. In addition, we'll also be crossing over to the Nairobi Stock Exchange, or Nairobi Securities Exchange, rather, where Dennis Otieno is on standby. You will know that on Friday, after the Supreme Court judgment, there were episodes of panic sells by foreign investors of up to 1.4 billion Kenya shillings. It triggered a market crash on Friday with huge sales of certain shares. We want to see what the situation is right now, and Dennis Otieno will be giving us that particular update. But for now, let's listen in to Interior CS Fred Matiang'i. I believe he has an update. Let's cross over there now.
But sincerely, we apologize that we are slightly late, but we intend to make this very brief and very straightforward. We are meeting to respond to concerns that have been expressed by parents, heads of institutions, about the Kenya National Examinations 2017 in the wake of the impending rerun of the presidential elections. I want to start first of all by saying, I think you know everyone here, Mr. Robert Masese, the Acting Director General, of course you know Professor George Magoha, the Chairperson of the Kenya National Examinations Council, my colleague PS Dr. Kipsang, and Mercy Karogo, the Acting CEO at the Kenya National Examinations Council. We had two members of the board, two members of the council with us. Someone get Mrs. Saina Donsati from the PS's boardroom. They probably don't know that we started, but anyway, they will find us underway. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to start by saying this. We are ready to mount the Kenya National Examinations 2017. We are totally ready, completely prepared. As usual, we have been having our usual and regular planned meetings. All the activities that are supposed to take place have taken place. We have completed the program. The council has been meeting very regularly, and we can say with confidence that we are ready now to begin exams 2017. The oral papers and the papers that are done by our visually impaired children start on the 23rd of October. And then the rest of the papers will follow thereafter. The intensity of the exam picks up on the 6th to 29th of November. That is Kenya's Certificate of Secondary Education. So we are technically ready to proceed from the 23rd of October all the way to the 29th of November for KCSE. KCPE is scheduled to be done on 1st and 2nd of November, but the day before, 31st, we will have, what we usually do as a critical part of that exam, which is a rehearsal. Everything that needs to be in place is in place, including preparation for examiners, training and identification of the centers where marking is going to be done, and all the necessary programming that is done alongside the exams. I need to pause here and say this. Mounting national examinations is usually a huge exercise. It's not just a matter of, our children going into the examination room. It is a huge exercise which begins at the beginning of the year. So it takes a long time to prepare, and it takes a long time to ensure that everything is in place. But again, I reiterate the position that we are totally ready to mount the exams. We are alive, however, to the reality that we are likely to, or we're going to have a rerun of the presidential election, and as a result, we have requested the IEBC to consider doing this before the 17th of October. I have both had conversations with the chairperson of the commission, and we have written formally to him to request the commission humbly to consider holding that election a week before the 17th of October, because even if we want to start off on the 23rd, we will need a week or two earlier to ensure that the schools, especially where the practical exams are going to be done and so on, are ready. To mount the exam that we usually do for our visually impaired children, the Brailles, we need time to set up the systems for that. So we hope that the IEBC will favorably consider our request and hold the elections at least a week before the 17th of October, so that then we're able to ensure we do not disrupt the national examinations program or timetable. One reason why we are making this request is because if that does not happen, we will very significantly disrupt the academic programs in the education sector. Because as I said, the system of mounting exams is not just the event of exams, because we plan this together with the marking of the exams, the processing of the results, preparation for Form 1 selection and placement, and so on. So if we were to disrupt that plan as it is right now, it will have very far-reaching repercussions on the academic programs in the education sector, as it were. Frankly, it will be messy. A number of people have asked me, and I've been conversing with my colleagues, the chairperson of the council and council members. We have been dealing with that nightmare scenario, that should there be any effect or any disruption on that program, it will throw us into disarray in a very significant way. But we hope that the Commission will indulge us and will consider the welfare of our children, especially because I think, truth be told, campaigns have been going on for quite a while. Truth be told, a lot of good work has happened in terms of engaging the public. So if we could, this time around, at least pay attention to the welfare of our children and hold the election and get it out of the way, so that our children can have ample time to concentrate on preparations, go through the examination process. Professor Magora pointed out something to me again this morning in that consideration, that if that program was disrupted, our children's psychological preparation for exams has already been done, because we have socialized them all the way since the beginning of the year that we are going to have the exam at this time, and we've released the timetable and so on. We do not want to again cause anxiety to our children by changing the timetable. Lastly, on that particular issue, I need to say that we sincerely hope that even before the actual election date happens, the IEBC and all the players in the electoral process will take cognizance of the fact that this time round the main campaigns are going to happen while our schools are in session, and not just in session at a very critical time in the year. This is our shortest term, school term. We actually have about 6 weeks left before the rest of our students close for the end of year holidays. And any activities that are going to be held at this point in time will need to be sensitive to the environment, the learning environment for our children, and how we can facilitate them to ensure they are not disturbed unduly, and that their interactions with their teachers is not disturbed. And then we also engage in that activity in a manner that is also respectful of the players in the education sector. I know that some of our teachers are going to be involved in the exercise one way or the other. We also work it in such a way that there is minimum disruption to regular learning and regular school activity, as it were. I do not need to overemphasize this, that our children are very important to us, and it's critical. Any nation worth its salt and name surely cannot engage in activities oblivious of the welfare of its children. I think let's pay attention to the welfare of our children and ensure that whatever we do not affect the learning of our children. That said, since I have this opportunity, I told some of you when we met on Saturday that I'm going to talk about the incident at Moi Nairobi Girls, and I thought I needed to just make a comment about this and say that it's very unfortunate what happened at Moi Nairobi Girls on Saturday. Most of the investigations are done, and I can tell you unequivocally, I have been briefed by the police that it was not an accident. All investigations have ruled out the fact that that was not an accident. It was a case of arson, and a number of interrogations have happened. The police have assured me, or assured us as the players in the sector, that they are very useful leads in the direction of specific suspects, and we will know in due course who those suspects are and other background information related to them. As Minister of Education, we feel very sad about this. We are going to do whatever it takes to support the school to resume its regular programs in good time, but we feel saddened that we have lost our children in that kind of incident, which essentially is as a result of a crime. I said on Saturday, and I say again, that our love goes to the families that have been affected. We will stand with them, and we will do whatever it takes to share the burden of sorrow that they face at this time. But I hasten to say that we have a lot that we need to do in the education sector, especially to manage issues related to discipline in our schools and the good order of the way in which our schools operate. I have seen reports around talking about implementation of investigation reports and so on and so forth. We have in the last 1 year probably had the most radical and far-reaching implementation of recommendations that have been made. In fact, out of the 17 critical recommendations we got out of the 2016 arson cases, we have implemented about 11 of them. We have improved our management system in the schools. We have improved our inspection system. Our inspectorate and quality assurance departments are stronger than they have ever been in many years. We are well staffed. I never make excuses about staffing. We are very well staffed in the inspectorate department, and a lot of good work is going on. Some of the work that is left to be done will be done through legislative amendments, and then we are working and hoping that we will approach Parliament with very specific proposals on some of the things we want to see in the law to protect the work that we do. I, for example, would like to support school principals a bit more when it comes to the decision-making processes and the discipline of our children in schools. I think we have provided an extremely liberal environment, which sometimes is not very helpful in the manner in which we are moving our schools forward. We want greater responsibility in our children, and we want to train and raise up our children to understand that they will amount to something if they are disciplined and if they are committed and they do the right thing at school. And so that the authority of the teacher is foregrounded, respected, and we ensure that the authority of the school principals is also protected and strengthened as we go along, so that we move ahead. Secondly, we would also like to increase the place of parents and parental responsibility in the schools. Some of the challenges we face would probably be avoided if there was a better framework and a much more defined framework of parental participation in the school system. We debated these issues before, and we're working on them. And as I said, we will give the necessary legislative protection to the actors necessary in this assignment. And we regret what has happened, but I want to assure the country that our children in schools are safe, and we are trying to do the best we can to make the school environment secure and safe, and to minimize these kinds of criminal incidents that happen in our institutions of learning. The law will take its course, and the culprits will face the full force of the law in cases like this, and we will not hesitate to do what we are expected to do as responsible public servants in a case like this. I think I'll leave it there, and I'll be happy to take any questions. And my two colleagues with me here, both the peers and Professor Magoha, I'm sure will be happy to respond to any issues that you feel they should. Yes, please.
Mr. Mackenzie, just spoken of the recent fire at the school, but in the past 1 week there have been about 3 or 4 cases of fire in the school. Is there any information maybe just to add on the other cases of the fire in the school?
The 2 cases got in Kisumu and the boarding school in Kitui. Boarding school in Kitui, what the investigations have shown us is that it was an accident in the school. Same thing as in Chuka Boys. But you see, we don't have a conclusive report because investigations are going on. In the case of the got in Kisumu, it's also a case of arson. It's a criminal case. The CID are on it, and I believe they should make arrests. What I need to add while we are on this issue is that sometimes, and on this issue I want to address my fellow citizens very responsibly on this matter. Some of the things we do ourselves in some of our areas in the country are irresponsible. We have school environments where there are arguments about local communities, and head teachers, boards of management are quarreling with somebody, and they foolishly take it on to the point of destroying school property and engaging in criminal activities to make a point. Those kinds of contests, either between local communities and school leaders and communities saying they don't want that principal or the other principal, the Teacher Service Commission is the employer of teachers. It's an independent commission. It's the institution that employs teachers. Villages don't employ teachers. And in some cases, like some of the challenges we're dealing with in Sikot, members of the public feel they are not interested in a particular principal because very flimsy things like they don't come from that area, or they don't come from a particular clan, or they are not interested in them because of ABCD. This is stuff that we have to deal with very seriously. And when this happens, it is easy to point fingers, but we have to act responsibly. All of us, members of the public, have to act responsibly, parents, and of course, we as actors in the sector, we have to be responsible people. I've kept making this point everywhere I go, that we cannot resolve a conflict in a school or a conflict on the headship of a school by banning the school. And yet these are challenges we have kept facing in a number of schools. We have schools in the country. I don't have to lie. Let me be very honest with everybody. We have schools in the country right now where we have certain conflicts where either the church insists that so and so should be the principal, the local community insists so and so should be the principal, and in most cases, everything they are saying has nothing to do with the professionalism of the principals. It's got to do with clans, faith preferences, and so on and so forth. And people need to understand we can resolve those issues, and we do listen. Our colleagues at the TSC are not impervious to reason. They reason, and they can listen to complaints. If, for example, a community raises specific complaints about a principal and say we would prefer XYZ, then we will reason with them. But this habit of sometimes going to the extent of damaging institutions to either make a point or as a result of expressing disagreement with the leadership of the school, some of the fires and some of the challenges we have faced before in the sector are related to those kinds of things. Politicization of school headship, politicization of responsibility in the education sector. It is not right, it is not fair, it isn't responsible. So these are the issues that we are dealing with. But again, no one is absolved just because they are defending their clan interests or their whatever interest and so on. The law will take its course. All right.
Yeah, sure. Ferdinand Moon, BBC. I have 3 questions, if you don't mind. First is to do with the national examinations. Your plan is only dependent on the IBC accepting that they hold the elections on the 17th. There are only 6 days to organize the presidential elections. You ask them to have about 45. So what if they say no? Number 2, it's almost like there's almost another scientific bias. They just hoping it's different. But in the previous time, there was a report that was a task force that was released. Look at the cause of the fires, what happened to that report. And the last question, you've spoken about those folks having to deal with a very liberal environment and you have to give them more support. I wonder whether you are reconsidering capital.
My friend, anyway, look, of course no one is considering capital punishment. Anyway, look, you know, as the executive branch of government, we can't take all decisions when it comes to legislative action and so on. That's why we're making proposals to Parliament. We want, for example, to hasten the process of disciplining students who are engaged in discipline cases, the process of removing such students from schools. Because you are aware, you live in Kenya, you are aware how many times we have been sued and how many times school principals and boards have been sued when they have expelled students. It's an interesting phenomenon in our country which amazes me. I mean, your child commits a mistake in school, some of the mistakes are very dangerous to other students, and when they are expelled from school, you turn up in court and say, oh, I'm being discriminated against, my child is being discriminated against. You have seen recently how many court cases that we are dealing with as a result of that. So that's why we are really looking at the legislative environment and how it protects the decisions that we have to take as we go along. But as I said, this is not a matter on which we can make a conclusive decision as ministry. We have to go to Parliament, and I believe our members of Parliament will debate the issue and also take submissions also from stakeholders and others before a decision is made. We will also abide by what finally Parliament decides to do. But we have this very, very strong view that we need to relook again at the way in which we manage and process discipline issues in our schools across the country. Let's be very honest with one another. Some of the things we are doing are irresponsible and they are not helping our children in the process. Secondly, on the issue of our planning is dependent on the IBC. It's not dependent on the IBC. We planned for these exams. We've been planning since January. We were done with the timetable for exams before the end of the first term. I'm saying that our plan and our timetable is intact and it's okay the way it is. We do not want to interfere with it. That is why we have already sensitized the IBC on that particular plan and program, and we have been assured by the IBC that they will consider They have not taken a decision, or they did not expressly tell us they will consider our proposals, but we have made a humble request to them and sensitized them on the need for us to keep the plan as it is right now. Because if we change it, we will disrupt a lot of things. That does not mean that we cannot change the plan and we cannot fall back on plan B. Plan B would be reorganizing the whole examination timetable as it were. I don't want to imagine it right now because I know it can be very disruptive and it will interfere with everything we are doing. So that's why I'm hoping that the IBC will actually take into consideration our proposals as it were. But in the event that, I mean, for some reasons that we cannot foresee, they are not able to consider our requests, then we will come back to the country and say this is where we are and we have to relook at our plans. God forbid, but it will be extremely disruptive. It will disrupt our academic programs for 2017 and 2018. It will affect everything, including placement and selection of Form 1, and when the academic programs begin in 2018, it will affect the programming we are having to kick on the free secondary education program as it were in the beginning of the year. It will affect a lot of things. And you know, we are reorganizing a number of activities, including activities that involve some of the new frameworks and new investments we are making in the secondary education sector, for example. All that will be disrupted. So that's why I hope, and our fingers remain crossed, that the IBC will take into consideration our very kind request to them, because we can only make a request. The report, it shows that you did not attend the launch of the report. By the time we launched, we received the report at KICD, we actually put it on the screen and told you the 17 critical recommendations. We took you through how we have implemented 11 of them. We actually said the 5 of them that requires legislative action, and now we have proposed amendments to the Education Act and what we are going to do in that respect. It is not true, as many people want to say, that some of those recommendations have not been implemented. They have been implemented vigorously. As I told you, these days we don't complain. Our inspectorate system is much, much stronger than it has ever been before, I can tell you for a fact, and a lot of good work has happened. There is no surge in school fires. We have 3 cases that we're dealing with that have been reported, and all of them are being investigated, and we're dealing with them. And of course, you know, I also want to be sincere with you and tell you that the sector has challenges. We are not where we would like to be. There are so many things we would like to do that we are not able to do. We are walking. This is a journey. Reforming the sector is a journey. It's not an event. It's not going to happen in 1 day, in 2 days, in 1 year, 2 years. It is a journey that we have to walk, all of us. It takes time to get to a particular destination as we go forward, and we'll keep walking, all of us. Buhere, how many more? Okay.
My name is Alex Scott from NTV. Just recapping 2 questions. Number 1, recapping on the issue of talking about the examination timeline and given the petition packet. Now, as Ferdinand said earlier, IEBC has 60 days. When you look at those timelines, probably if it goes with the last day, the elections could be conducted on the 1st of November. Now, if they decide to go with the 1st of November, to what extent will it affect the examination timeline? And I'm looking at it because you've just said it will disrupt the examination timeline and the preparation of the ministries. So to what extent?
Let me, Professor, please, I thought I've responded to the issue. Maybe I used a language that you did not understand. Professor,
our children have a right, isn't it? Our children have a right. They have a right to be loved by their parents. They have a right to be taken care of, and they have a right to be told the truth. So whatever is happening is outside that right. And what we are saying is very clear and unequivocal, that it is preferable for everybody. There is a child in every home, including those people at IBC and everywhere else. We are saying that we should not forget the children in this equation. So the players who are much bigger than us, because for us we work like submarines under the ground, should consider that our children have a right, and that postponing the exam would be most undesirable, because they are not as strong as you and me, the children of today. They require to be handled very carefully. I think that's the first point. The second point I would want to say, Honorable Minister, that Perhaps we think about it when we get there, because for me my glass is not half empty, it's always half full. And we are sure that if we engage, we shall get a solution which will not interfere with the children's right to have an exam at the appropriate time.
Thank you, Prof. And we have acted very responsibly, by the way. I have personally picked up the phone and called Mr. Chebukati. We have written to him on this particular issue. And the question is, I mean, it's a constitutional provision in all matters. It's very important that we look at the welfare of the children, and the children are very important in our country. It would be disastrous if we were to actually reorganize the timetable, as I've explained to you. So this is not a matter on which we should have so many debates and jokes. We come from the sector, we understand what that means. The effects are very serious, and we don't want to contemplate. That's why the first responsibility we have is to sensitize the IBC on what that would mean if our request is not responded to. And we have written to them. I have shared the timetable with them. I have explained to them what that means, and I hope that they will consider our request. Last? Yes, please. More in Nairobi girls, the number that we have been told, I mean the number of the students that the number of the students who passed away is 9, and very unfortunate. By Saturday when we were there, tuliambiwa kwamba wanafunzi 8 walikuwa wameaga dunia kufikia Jumamosi, na kuna mmoja ambaye alikuwa katika hospitali. Tuliarifiwa jana usiku kwamba alifariki. Kwa hivyo idadi ya wanafunzi ambao wamefariki katika mkasa wa Moi Nairobi Girls ni wanafunzi 9. Na hakika kusema kweli ni kwamba tulihakikisha kwamba maafisa wa Wizara ya Elimu walikuwa huko, na mwalimu mkuu na wenzake walipanga kuwa kila mzazi, kila mwanafunzi achukuliwe na mzazi wake, na mwanafunzi yeyote asiruhusiwe kutoka shule kama hajachukuliwa na mzazi wake. Kwa hivyo sidhani kwamba kuna idadi yoyote ya wanafunzi ambao hatuwezi wakati kusema mahali waliko, kwa sababu wote walichukuliwa na wazazi wao. Na mambo ya shule ya upili ya Alliance Girls, tulipata ripoti, tumeandikiwa ripoti na bodi ya shule, na tuko kwa uchunguzi, na tunataka kuchunguza hiyo ripoti ambayo tumepewa. Kwa hivyo hatuwezi kuzungumzia maneno ambayo yanachunguzwa sasa, na hatujakamilisha uchunguzi huo. Na unajua maneno ya walimu, waajiri wa walimu inashughulikiwa na tume ya kuajiri walimu ambayo ni Teacher Service Commission. Kwa hivyo kisheria, kusema ukweli, sisi kama wizara hatuwezi kuzungumzia maneno ya utumishi wa mwalimu fulani. Kutokea shida kama ni maneno ya nidhamu ama shida yoyote na walimu, sisi tunawasiliana na Teacher Service Commission kwanza. Kwa hivyo tutafanya uchunguzi, alafu tutawasiliana na Teacher Service Commission, kwa sababu wao ndio wako na jukumu kama mwajiri wa walimu kuchukua hatua na kuendeleza uchunguzi huo. I thought that was final. Yeah. Yeah. That is very simple, my friend. We will plan around that. It's a very simple, straightforward issue. By the time we made a request to them that they make sure the elections take place before the 17th, what we are saying is that the school environment, not all schools are polling stations anyway, but most of them are polling stations. And fortunately, many of them are primary schools. We will work on a framework together with our colleagues in the inspectorate on what we will do for a day or two during the time that polling is taking place, so that learning is not disrupted, as it were. That is a much easier issue to handle than the nightmare of the IBC failing to consider our very humble and reasonable request. Thank you very much.
Live press conference there at Jogoo House, where Interior CS Fred Matiang'i, together with other high-ranking officials in the education industry, in addition, Professor George Magoha, Kenya National Exams Council Chairman, are handling various issues, talking about or giving updates on the Moi Girls High School fire, elections, and of course education matters as well in regards to the upcoming examinations. Before we summarize some of them, let's cross over now to Chiromo mortuary, where Hassan Mugambi is on standby. A post-mortem was supposed to take place on the bodies of the 8 girls who lost their lives. A press conference happening now, an update by Pius Masai, the Deputy Director, National Disaster Management Unit, I believe. If not, nevertheless, let's listen in.
Be required to give a statement which is part of the identification process, so the police officers responsible for those actions will be here to take those statements. The third thing which will happen is that for the bodies which are here, we respect that the relatives who may know them may have a chance to look at them before the postmortems are done, for purposes again of identification, where that is possible. Where it is not possible, then we will proceed with the postmortem and the identification with the DNA. So in terms of the timing, I think Masai has clearly stated we start at 8 in the morning. The teams will be here by that time, and we expect that any parent who may have unfortunately lost a child during that fire, then should be here to provide those samples.
And before I ask any question, we need to appeal, to make public appeal to all members of the public, all stakeholders, all well-wishers. The students of Moi High School girls, as you are aware that during the fire incident, they left the school, even some without proper tracing, because they lost their belongings. So, as a National Disaster Management Unit, working closely with line ministry, department, agencies, organizations, we are strengthening on the government effort of supporting the school, whereby we are requesting to all well-wishers to support this activity by donating food and non-food items to the school. You are allowed to approach the school, whereby in the school you will meet with the school administration and you can deliver your support. Many people have been calling, wanting to know where they can deliver this. The procedure is, please visit the school, send your support directly to the school, whereby it will be delivered to the school administration and the students will be supported. And the students, they are many in number, because equally those ones who are not in that dome were equally affected, as you are aware that they just went away, and through the evacuation procedures, most of them, their properties were damaged, some lost many things which they require for your support. And you are aware that in the school you need mattresses, you need blankets, the bed sheets, you need the books, we need the pens, we need the geometrical sets, we need food, and that will be of great help. Thank you. Yes. As a last count, we had received 8. So we had 8 bodies received, but we get to know the actual count when we do the postmortem. Yeah. That we can't confirm yet. Sorry? I don't have the last update. So the last update is we had 8 received. So if there is any new update, we'll be able to update accordingly. Yes. Yeah, as he's saying, the number of the dead bodies will remain as it was said, and through the postmortem, if there will be any updates, will be updated later. We cannot be given any information other than what you have been informed, a man of the 8. If any additionals will be told tomorrow during the postmortem, officially. Thank you. So far as per yesterday, what we know that the missing numbers were balanced by those numbers that were found dead. So far, the school confirmed, according to the records, they did not have anyone missing. But if anyone will be missing, as a report of that nature should be given to the police and equal to the school. But so far as we know, there's no any report of missing person. Process of DNA sampling is a long process. Once samples have been taken, equally is a long procedure for results to come out, and you cannot tell you for what time they expect the results, but that will come definitely. And Professor you can make comment on this one, because it's not a simple matter. It's a process that takes time and is done by different agencies, looking for different things, so that they make it one record.
Yeah. So in short, once the samples have been taken, if everything goes well, within 2 weeks' time, we'll probably be able to get the results. But I must say that it can take up to a month or even longer, depending on the DNA, the quality of the DNA samples we get. So in this case, we are not yet sure. It might take a long time, but we are hopeful that within a short time, we can be able to get the results.
You can actually address her. She says that her child was at Nairobi Women's and is now allegedly, she's been told that she's died. So what can you tell that parent?
You say that a parent complaining a child was involved in this fire incident. It's unfortunate that it happened so. If it happened so, we are saying that those bodies which are here have not been identified. Maybe that one may be within these bodies. That's fine. Which one? Yeah. She says it's not the hospital. The procedure and the correct procedure is, I request, it's unfortunate that the parent has not seen the child, but we can assist this parent. Let her see me after this one. I can take her direct to the school and meet the school principal and administration. Will find out where the child is, if she was in the hospital. So let her report to us here. We'll take responsibility to assist her to get the authorities to know where the child is. We'll do it straight away. Yeah. Okay, that's finished.
Well, that seems to be the end of that short press conference at the Chiromo mortuary, where we expected the post-mortem on the 8 bodies of the ladies who lost, or the girls who lost their lives in the Moi Girls High School fire that started at 2 a.m. on Saturday morning. Was expected to start today, but the information we're now receiving is that post-mortem will happen tomorrow. In that press conference, I was addressed by Pius Masai, Deputy Director, Disaster Management Unit, among others. Some of the issues that were discussed was that the actual figures of those who passed on in the fire is officially given as 8. If that changes, we'll let you know. But we're also receiving reports that one student lost their life while in hospital, and we'll give you better details about that once we are aware of that. One issue that's come up in that press conference is missing persons or missing students. And Pius Masai also saying, if there are any parents who have not been able to trace their children or their students, whether in the school or at the hospital, that they should go and see him, maybe at the mortuary. That could be a place to start, and they can go to the school together and try and trace where that child could be. But they're saying as of now, the numbers tally in terms of those who are missing, that they've all been traced, and that any parents who might have not been able to find their children, that they should immediately report to that unit, the National Disaster Management Unit, and see how that can be sorted. That was a question that was also posed to Interior CS Fred Matiang'i, who also stated that as of now, they are not aware that there are any who are unaccounted for, bearing in mind, of course, the post-mortem is supposed to take place tomorrow. So that's a bit about what was discussed. But what we know is that the post-mortem will start off tomorrow, and we know that parents have also started trickling into the Chiromo mortuary to get more information. That's something that Hassan Mugambi will give us more details about later on. He is been at the Chiromo mortuary since morning, and I believe Swaleh Mdoe, who's coming up next, on the Kiswahili part of Citizen Extra will give us more updates. My name is Wahiga Mwaura. It's been a pleasure bringing you the latest over the last 3 hours or so in terms of news, politics and current affairs as well. Wishing you a blessed afternoon. Stay tuned. Keep it Citizen Extra because Swalem Doe is up next on the other side of this short break.